I'm Joe Matthews, the co-president of the Global Forum. I just want to give you a very quick list. I read a translation, an English translation of the Referendum Act, the text, and studied it. And to this question of what the world can learn, there were 7 features that I think I read correctly, and then I'd love any comment on any of them that might address the question. 1, there appears to be a demand for short and simple language, 100 words or so in an initiative. Is that a good thing? Is that something worth emulating? The system appears open to corrections, with the Central Election Commission being able to suggest corrections to initiative. Folks, there's a sort of review. Sometimes you get systems in other parts of the world that are very inflexible and don't allow corrections. Does that work? Is that worthy? There's flexibility. A lot of people in this room who've done initiative campaigns know the pain of coming up just short in the number of signatures. There appeared to be in the language this sort of possibility that if you were close enough, you might get another 30 days to get over the threshold to qualify measure. 4th, there was protection. There appeared to be protection for petition circulators to operate in a lot of public spaces. That's a problem in some places where you just can't find public spaces, including my state of California. I don't see any fee charged. Fees are common. It's $2,000 just to file your paperwork with the state. They charge you in my state. There also seems to be, it was hard the language for me on this, and I went into the translation, but there seemed to be a bar on using initiative referendum for budget and tax questions. Is that true? Is that a good thing? I mean, there are certain places that can screw up their budget and tax system with direct democracy. And then finally, I don't see any prohibition, maybe I'm unaware of it, of money coming from outside the country into the process, and whether that's a good thing. I mean, I can't imagine a country that would be consumed with questions about foreign influence on politics, but I wonder how that plays here.
Have you ever thought about combining direct democracy and citizen assembly? Why I'm saying that? You mentioned several times same-sex marriage and abortion system you have decided in Taiwan. Exactly the same questions have been decided in Ireland, and they combined it. Not in a planned way, but for political reasons they made a citizen assembly on same-sex marriage and abortion system. And the combination with a referendum, because it was changing the constitution, and if it is changing the constitution, they have obligatory referendum in Ireland. So what happened there? It was a perfect preparation, a perfect deliberative process you mentioned, and it gave a lot of very valid information to the people, because they are the ordinary people, the representative members of this citizens' assembly, and I never forget this sentence, ask so many silly questions to the experts, and that's the important thing, that the complex law system has to be translated, and the complex medicine questions, etc., with abortion, etc. And these silly questions and answers have been sent to all households in Ireland, and this was the main information why they voted for or against in the referendum. And this could be done regularly, and last year in Rome we heard of Oregon, the state in the US, where they regularly combine a citizens' assembly to give advice to the people after an initiative is valid. So there is an initiative, enough signatures, then you have a citizens' assembly, deliberative process, the information comes back to the people, and then they can decide in a referendum. And the last thing I wanted to say is, referring to the 3 shoemakers, you're right, the wisdom of the many has to be implemented. And I would say the more important the decision is, the more it should be decided by the people. What does it mean? The basic rules of the Constitution can never be decided, to my mind, by the parliamentary, by the president, by the government, by jurisdiction. The basic rules following Rousseau and Tocqueville and others have to be decided by the people, and afterwards the following rules can be decided by those powers. That means I would not advise, but propose to Taiwan, make a citizens' assembly on the Constitution, and especially on rules of direct democracy and the dividing powers between parliament, government, president, and jurisdiction. This has to be discussed by ordinary people. They should make a proposal, and to my mind, they should decide if it is just an advice to the government, or do they have the want to wait to the referendum? That would be the perfect combination to my mind. Thank you.
And I certainly would like the idea of citizen assembly. And in fact, some civic group in Taiwan, they actually propose to incorporate the mechanism of citizen assembly into our constitutional amendment procedure. And certainly we can think about how to incorporate that kind of deliberative democracy mechanism into our referendum initiative process as well.
I really want to know the Italy referendum. And now it's chaos. You know, last year we practiced the Taiwanese referendum. And just like Italy, back to the 1970, fighting for the power, controlled by the political party. Can you tell us more about that?
I'd like to stand up actually for Italian democracy for a second. I don't think quite the word chaos comes in. I'll just be starting by what you said, Maya, about the important issues. Now, I'll quote an Italian called Tacitus, a great Italian Roman historian, who says, "On the smaller issues, the princes decide. On the important issues, the people decide." And that's when people say, what have the Romans ever done for us? That's one of the things. The Romans actually had some sort of direct democracy. And the Romans still do. Now, if we go back to Italy, 1974, it was they implemented the Referendum Act, or il referendum applicativo, as it's called in Italian. The first thing they had was on divorce. The political parties couldn't agree on divorce. They had a referendum that solved the issue. They also had a referendum on abortion, where through the referendum they reached a compromise decision. Now, one of the things they have in Italy is they have a threshold of 50%, whereas here it's 25%. And as a result of that, a lot of referendums in Italy have been void because the turnout has just been too low. There was one on stem cell research, and the Pope encouraged people not to vote, and therefore that fell as a result of that. Now, you might say, well, that is chaos, but it's perhaps not surprising that a country which is predominantly Catholic might have views like that. I don't personally have a problem with stem cell research, but if the people of Italy have a problem with that, then so be it. But when you say the thing about chaos, I think that's I mean, Italy invites that comparison, and I do take your point. But I think what I found interesting, I was in Rome about almost 10 years ago. At that time there was a Prime Minister of Italy who was quite well known for his bonga parties and so on. His name is Silvio Berlusconi. And Silvio Berlusconi passed an act that says that the sitting Prime Minister could not be put on trial, just sort of hypothetically speaking, I suppose. He wasn't saying that it was nothing to do with him necessarily. Once he had that act had been passed, the good citizens of Italy collected signatures. They had a referendum on whether this bill should be scrapped. The majority, I think, was 93% on a turnout that was like in the high 50s, voted to abrogate or scrap the law that the Prime Minister couldn't be put on trial. As a result of that, Mr. Berlusconi was put on trial, had to resign, and had to serve a community sentence, and could not stand for political office for, I think, about 8 years. So, by having the referendum as a last resort, in most cases in Italy, the referendums aren't passed because the threshold hasn't been met. But in this particular case, people were angry, they were fired up, and they used their civic reserves to say enough is enough. So rather than sort of thinking we could be like Italy, you know, there are many things you wouldn't want to be like Italy about. I grant that, but you have the political system in Italy works not because of the political party, not because of the partitocrazia, the partyocracy as it's called in Italian, but because the people occasionally, the stupid Italian shoemakers, can sometimes say to the political elites, enough's enough, basta non più in Italian. And that's why you should be a bit like the Italians. Yes.